What can we expect from every single championship club going into the 2025-26 season? We're going to be going through all the teams and discussing their situation going into next season. Some are in a great position and some are in a not so great position with a lot of questions that still need to be answered going into the new season and a lot of work that needs to be done before going into next season. If you're a fan of championship content, then please do hit subscribe on this channel. It takes 1 second. If you like daily championship content, this is the place to be. Please do hit subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you wouldn't mind helping me out, it takes 1 second, as I say. And if you like the championship, then this is the place to be. Also, drop a like as well if you enjoyed the video. It would be very greatly appreciated. And let's start off with the teams that are going to be dropping down into the championship, which is, of course, Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton. Now, all three teams have put up a pretty pathetic attempt of trying to stay up in the Premier League, but it really does just highlight the gap between the Championship and the Premier League. And honestly, even though they got that low amount of points, we're still expecting them to be right at the top of the Championship this season. We'll start off by talking about Ipswich. I think those are probably going to be most people's favourites going into the new season just due to the fact they've got so much talent in that team. They built, a lot of people will compare them to what Luton did in terms of buying players from the Championship and then playing them in the Premier League, getting relegated from the Premier League and dropping down. All of us predicted Luton to go back up. That, of course, didn't happen. They ended up getting relegated. But I don't think that will be the same for Ipswich. Ipswich have bought a different quality of player compared to what Luton did. Luton brought in kind of like, not even, I'd say just like average championship players. Ipswich have brought in the absolute top tier of championship player. You look at Jack Clark, obviously he's struggled in the Premier League. There's a big gap. I think in the Championship, he will be absolutely incredible. We've also got players like Jaden Philogene that's really struggled since he signed for Ipswich. He's got a couple of goals against United, but other than that, he's really struggled, and Ipswich fans haven't taken to him too well. You've got Jacob Greaves at the back, who's another player, again, that hasn't been great. None of these players, of course, it's such a big step to the Premier, but in the Championship, these players will look like a complete different quality, and they'll be completely different players in the Championship. You even look at a player like Leif Davis, he was absolutely unbelievable when Ipswich got promoted, and he struggled so much, and a lot of people were expecting him to do well in the Premier League. It hasn't really happened. But you look at the squad, Ipswich squad, the majority should stay together. You're looking at, obviously, Liam Delap's, surely he's got to be on his way. He's got that release clause of about £30 million. The Premier League clubs will be snapping it up straight away. So Ipswich will probably have to sign another striker. They've got Hurst, but they'll probably need somebody else as well. I think the other best player, to be fair, this season has been Kayuste, who isn't going to be signed, it doesn't look like, with Ipswich as well. So they are going to be losing their two best players from the Premier League. But I still have no doubts on that side. They absolutely have enough quality. They've got a good goalkeeper now in Alex Palmer. Moving on to Leicester now. Now, it's an interesting situation with the kind of manager situation for them. Are they going to be keeping hold of Ruben Nistelrooy, or are they going to choose to move him on? Now, a few weeks ago, he was looking like, I was saying on my TikTok, I think he was one of the worst managers in Premier League history. But to be fair to him, he's actually turned it around in the last few weeks. He's got a few decent performances. Got a good performance against Brighton. Of course, beat Ipswich as well recently. They've been getting a few positive results recently, which is obviously, it's going to stand them in a bit better stead going into next season, or is it just kind of like this maybe leads Leicester to keeping Ruben Nistelrooy and it all go wrong next season? Because I don't know if he's really the man to get them out of the Championship if he does stay on. I'm just not convinced with him at all so far. But there's no doubt, as well as Leicester, they've of course struggled in the Premier League. They're actually ahead of Ipswich now in the table. But that squad was just nowhere near for good enough for Premier League at any point. We never ever expected Leicester to stay up at any point. But then, that's what I'm saying, these guys are going to be one of the best teams in the Championship. They're going to have to sign a few players. Of course, Vardy's going, which is going to be a big kind of, obviously a massive miss for Leicester, of course, with even the contribution that he still brings to that side now. But it's a whole change of not having him there. He's been around Leicester for God knows how long, since like 2012, whatever it is. He's been around for absolutely ages. So it's going to be a big change there, so they're going to need to replace. And they've got some really exciting players who, of course, struggled in the Premier League. You look at Mavididi. You have Atawu as well, of course, was injured for a lot of the season as well. You've got quality wingers that we saw in the Championship were unbelievable last time they were there. They've also got Jeremy Monger as well, who's coming through. He's only just a young lad, 16, 17 years old, whatever he is. Genuinely looks like an unbelievable, it might even be 15, but genuinely looks like an unbelievable talent from the clips that I've seen of him. So he could be a player that really starts to get game time in the Championship as well. You've got Alves as well. You've got some real quality young players coming through at Leicester, along with the players that have already got them promoted once before and got a wealth of Championship experience. So you're looking at Leicester, I think they'll be right up there. Of course, these teams look so bad in the Premier League, but in the Championship, they're going to be very, very good, in my opinion. Now, you've got Southampton as well, who look like they might be getting Will Still as the manager, which I think is such an exciting appointment. He's done so well over in France, of course, it's well documented. He didn't have his coaching badges and did incredibly well over in France and did really well with Rennes. And then he's gone to Lens as well and done decent enough. And it's just a very exciting appointment. I think he's only like in his like mid-30s, maybe early 30s. and his manager's got so much potential, and I really can't wait to see how he gets on in English football. Will he go to Southampton? At the time of recording, it looks like he's the favourite to be taking that Southampton job. He's been approached for it. A lot of Championship clubs will be queuing up for a manager like that, and that would be such an exciting appointment. As well as the Southampton squad, which, although they have only got 12 points, again, they've got individually some pretty good players, and if they can get things right, and Will still can kind of get his style of play across to that Southampton side, I have no doubts they'll be absolutely up there. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is leaving though, which is a bit of a shame. I think his contract's up. You've still got some decent players in there. Harwood Bellis, if he stays. Tyler Dibblin, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with that. They could get absolutely loads of money for him. He's a player, Tyler Dibblin, that absolutely broke onto the scene and looked like such a good talent. He still is an unbelievable talent, but he hasn't really... I think he struggled for form in the second half of the season. As well as everyone was talking him up in the first half of the season, he was unbelievable in the first half of the season, in my opinion. Just such a good ball carrier, and just looks like such a threat as well, and such a fun player to watch. At the Championship, you'd think he would absolutely take the piss. But we'll have to see if he's still going to be there. I think clubs will obviously be sniffing around for him. Maybe the fact that he's struggled in the second half of the season might maybe then put Premier League teams off a little bit. And maybe he'll get a bit of a go in the Championship. And if we could see him in the Championship, that will be so exciting. But Southampton, there's still, I think there's still a lot to be positive about. And if they do appoint Will Still as their manager, honestly, I'd be really excited about that as a Southampton fan. So now moving on to the playoff teams. Of course, I don't know yet who is actually going to go and get promoted. It's obviously either going to be Sunderland or Sheffield United. But we're going to talk about them as if they didn't win the playoff final for both of them and how they'll get on in the Championship next season. But Coventry City, what do we expect next season? I think a lot of the squad should stay together. I'm seeing Hadji Wright getting linked away, but I'm not sure if he could maybe move, but I'm not sure it'll be a huge loss for Coventry. He's a player that needs to be more clinical, in my opinion. He just hasn't taken enough chances. Same with Ellis Sims. That's been Coventry's main Achilles heel, especially in the playoffs as well. And just overall, their whole game plan with Frank Lampard, I thought in the playoffs was very, as I've always said it, so Coventry look very one-dimensional. When they come up against a team, a top team, they need to be a bit more creative and have a bit more patience and have a bit more, something else in their game. At the moment, it's just too many crosses. It was just aimless crosses in them playoff games. And even before, you can get away with it against like the lower-end Championship teams and the mid-table Championship teams. Against the top teams is where Coventry have really struggled, just because they have the extra quality of them teams at the top, and Coventry needs to find another way of breaking them teams down. They've got some quality players in the midfield, though. Jack Rodoni, what a player. I don't know if he'll end up staying or moving on. He's a player that, in my opinion, could go on and play at Premier League level. Genuinely, such a good talent. He got double figures in goals and assists as well. You got Grimes as well, who can really control the play. It was a great signing they brought in January. They've got a good core group of that squad, which should really stay together. I don't think too many of them players will get poached. So I'm expecting Coventry to be right up there again next season in terms of battling for the playoffs. I just think Frank Lampard needs to work on things tactically a bit more to try and give Coventry a bit more of a different edge in games where, as I said, they're going to be playing against top-end Championship clubs where they need to be getting more positive results, because that's really where Coventry have fallen down a bit this season in the Championship. As for Bristol City, they just about scraped into the playoffs, didn't they? They got, almost the lowest amount of points in playoffs history to actually make the playoffs. I really don't think Bristol City's squad should be changing too much, to be honest. I think Jason Knight's the one that could really make a move to the Premier League. I'm not sure if it will happen. There's a few clubs after him. I think Everton are rumoured to be maybe looking at Jason Knight. But if he stays, he's an absolute key part to the way that Bristol City play. He does absolutely everything. I've been very vocal about how good I think Jason Knight really is, and how underrated I think he is in the Championship completely. So he's a player Bristol City keep hold of. They've got a very good manager in Liam Manning. He's got a very good system in place. So I'm really confident Bristol City having another go at the playoffs. It's just, are they going to invest enough? Are they really going to push the belt out to try and guarantee that playoff spot? I'm not so sure if they will. I think they'll be in a very similar position this time next season to what they're in this season in terms of their overall points and how they're pushing for the playoffs. I don't know if they're guaranteed to get in it by any means, but I think they'll be up there come the end of the season. And Bristol City, as I say, they've got a top manager. They've got some really good players, which I don't think that squad will get ripped apart too much, just because the points total they got wasn't great in terms of getting into the playoffs. And they don't have too many players that I think could really make that step up. Bristol City is more of a collective and a team effort, which they've got very good players, but I'm not sure who would really be poaching them in terms of players to be leaving Bristol City. Now we'll go on to Sunderland, who of course one of the teams in the playoff final. We don't know if they're going to go up or stay in the Championship, but I'm really excited to see how Sunderland get on, regardless if they go up or not. Even if they don't go up, they've got such a good young squad. You've got Bellingham, who's going to be a year older. I don't know if he'll end up leaving or not, but they've got Bellingham, who's a year older, Chris Rigg, a year older, Mayenda, who's been absolutely incredible. I think he's such a good player to watch. Mayenda, very tricky player, and he's just got something about him, Mayenda, as well. I really do think he's got potential to go on and play at the top level. You got players at the back, so you got your fullbacks, you got Trey Hume, you got Dennis Sirkin. You got overall such a good squad in my opinion there, which the player for player, I think Sunderland have got a really good starting 11. It's just about bolstering that. sorting out kind of, having a bit more depth in the squad and sorting that out and maybe investing in a few more players. But I just think one more season in the Championship for Sunderland, I think they'll be right up there next season. I really do believe they'll be right up there, maybe challenging for automatic promotion if they don't get promoted this season. But good luck to them. For me personally, I do hope they win in the playoff final. It would be nice to see a new team in the Premier League or a team that hasn't been in for a while, so I do wish Sunderland the best in the playoff final. Now, Sheffield United, I think if they don't get promoted, they'll be right up there again. I don't know what will happen with Chris Wilder. I don't know whether he'll stay on, and I'd imagine he probably would stay on. And Sheffield United have got a very good team. They've got a lot of loans, though, so they'll have to replace, if they go up or stay in the same division, they'll have to replace them loan players or sign them permanently. Or, they'll be very busy again in the transfer market, you'd expect, next season. They were very busy in the transfer market this season, as I say, a lot of loan players they did end up signing, but they've got some real quality players. But you'd imagine if they don't get promoted, some of that quality will go. You're especially looking at Gustavo Hamer. I think surely, if Sheffield United don't get promoted, he'll be on his way to a Premier League club. Unbelievable player, of course, won Championship Player of the Year. And I wouldn't say he absolutely deserved it, but I'd definitely say he was right up there in terms of players. And in terms of overall quality of player, he's a Premier League player, in my opinion. You've also got Michael Cooper in goal as well. He's been absolutely outstanding. I think he won Sheffield United's Player of the Year. Those are two players that I really think could potentially move on to the Premier League if Sheffield United don't go on and get promoted this season. They've got some real quality players in there, but as I say, they're going to have to invest a lot regardless if they're in the Premier League or if they're in the Championship. They're going to have to bring in quite a lot of players, and you'd imagine they'll be quite busy in the transfer market. Now, as for the teams that just about missed out on the players, you can include Middlesbrough in that, but we'll talk about Middlesbrough a bit later on. We've got the three next teams in the Championship table. We've got Blackburn, West Brom and Millwall in that group kind of below the playoffs. Now, we'll start off by talking about Blackburn. Now, Valérien Ismaël, of course, had that disaster, absolute disaster start at Blackburn, where I really thought his days and time was numbered, within the first few games of even getting there. But fair play to him, the turnaround that he's managed to get at that Blackburn side, with everything going against him. The Blackburn fan base really not on Ismaël's side from the start, to be honest. I'm really happy for Ismaël that he's managed to turn it around. Now, the one thing that I worry about Blackburn is, if they start the season poorly next season, what's the investment even going to be like in terms of the Venkies? And could Valérien Ismaël get turned on quite quickly as well if they start the season poorly? That's the one worry that I do have with Blackburn. But Ismaël's proved himself, especially at Barnsley, of course. We know how well he did there. And for me, Ismaël's a very, very good Championship manager. He just needs time to kind of implement his style, bring in some of the players that he wants to get. As I say, will he be back? That remains to be seen. But with Blackburn, I think they'll be fine next season. I do think they'll be absolutely fine. For me, it's just very important in the way Blackburn start next season in terms of how their season's actually going to end up finishing. But Blackburn do have some quality in the side, and they should be absolutely fine next season. I don't know about playoffs, but I think they'll be absolutely fine for kind of a mid-table finish, in my personal opinion. We'll go to Millwall next. Now, I think Millwall actually they had an incredible season. They didn't really score enough goals. That's my one worry about Millwall. But they had Ivanovic, who in the back end of the season was really, really impressive. At the back, of course, you know what you're going to get from Millwall. They're just such a solid side. Alex Neil's got them playing absolutely his way in terms of how solid they are defensively. Of course, you've got Tanganga. Will he stay? Will he move on to a Premier League club? I'm not so sure. I thought in January maybe a club like Wolves might go in for him, so maybe they might come back in from somebody like that. I'm not so sure. So it depends on kind of who they keep or not. I think Millwall with investment can really start to push for the playoffs again. They're always in and around it, aren't they? Let's be honest. They'll probably be in and around the playoffs again. They always seem to be in that kind of echelon of the table. So I'd imagine, as I say, Millwall, safe pair of hands under Alex Neil. They'll be top half for me, potentially pushing playoffs as well. So Millwall, you know what you're going to get from Millwall. You absolutely just know what you're going to get, don't you? West Brom up next. Now, they currently don't have a manager, but I think West Brom out of these three, for me, have the most potential to get to the playoffs. You might say maybe it should be it might be Millwall, but I do think West Brom in terms of the club size, they're always in and around it in the Championship playoffs, and you'd hope they get a bit of investment. We'll see who the new manager is. A lot of importance is obviously on who they appoint as the new manager, but they've still got some unbelievable players. If Josh Magic obviously got injured last season, he couldn't really stay fit for the whole of the season. If he can stay fit for the season, you've got yourself a Championship goal scorer there, which I think can get 20 goals for you, which is always going to stand you in good stead for promotion. And West Brom, they're always in and around it, as I say. So I'm expecting West Brom to be right up there again. And as I say, it's just all about who they get as their manager for next season. As for the next three teams now in this section of the table, we've got Sheffield Wednesday, Swansea and Middlesbrough. We'll start by talking about Middlesbrough, who are a team that's going to be very, very interesting going into next season. It looks like they are going to be keeping hold of Michael Carrick by the sounds of it. I mean, I think they would have sacked him by now if they weren't going to stick with him. So it's interesting. They're going to be under a lot of pressure next season to start that season very well. They're going to need a bit more investment into the side as well. Obviously, you had Ian Atchell on loan, didn't work out at all. You had Ilin Jr. as well. They brought in a few players in January. As I said before, I just don't think their January transfer window was really good enough. They needed to invest in the defence. They need to invest in the defence in the summer. If they don't do that, then what are Middlesbrough doing? Like, if Middlesbrough don't invest in any defenders, I don't know what they're doing. So you'd imagine they'll bolster up in defence. You can't be going into it with an ancient 50-year-old Johnny Howson going in at centre back. They can't be doing that again. They got to be investing. I think Dyche's maybe leaving on a free as well. So they're going to have to put some money into that defence and sign some players and sign some real quality at the back. Michael Carrick's just never cracked it defensively. There's no doubt when things are going well for Middlesbrough, they're a fantastic team to watch and one of my favourite teams to watch in the Championship. But when it goes wrong, it goes very, very wrong. So they're going to have to fix that. Michael Carrick has got a big job on in terms of sorting out that defence. And as well as that, they're going to need to kind of replace the players that they also signed in January with the loans. And they're going to have to bring in a few players in terms of that. Chuba Akpom's actually become available, I think. Again, I don't know if he's been released by Ajax, so he might be available by Ajax. I'm not too sure. Let me know in the comments. But Chuba Akpom might be available. And if there's one thing that can get Middlesbrough fans back on side, will be re-signing him. That would absolutely get Middlesbrough fans excited about going into next season. But I'm not sure if that will actually happen. Right, Sheffield Wednesday. It all depends on Danny Rowe, which I think Danny Rowe looks like he's off on his way, to be honest. And also as well, Josh Windass. He got his contract extended by Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was just a clause in his contract, and he put on his Instagram story that he's been held hostage. Like it's like a song called Hostage. So Josh Windass don't want to be there, by the sounds of it. You got Danny Rowe don't want to be there. It looks like he's probably going to be on his way sooner. At some point, he's got to go. And that really does put Sheffield Wednesday in an absolute mess, because Danny Rowe's papered over the cracks at Sheffield Wednesday. There'd be a League One team without him. They would have got relegated last season. There would have been an absolute mess. And Sheffield Wednesday's a club that I worry about just because of Chansiri. He could absolutely put that club put it under completely. He just is that kind of guy, isn't he? So that's not ideal with Sheffield Wednesday, and I don't see the investment coming in. They've got a pretty average squad. I worry about them next season. I do worry about them next season. And by the way, with Middlesbrough, I didn't actually say where I think they'll be. I think Middlesbrough will be pushing playoffs, like they always do. They're always in and around it. Again, another side that's always up there. But Sheffield Wednesday is a side that I'm thinking they could be heading towards the bottom end of the table just due to the fact of, as I said before, Danny Rowe leaving, the ownership, the vibe around Sheffield Wednesday. If things start badly, things can turn quite toxic quite quickly, in my opinion, at Sheffield Wednesday, which is just sad to see because they're a massive club and they deserve better. They deserve a better ownership. But as I say, it's not looking ideal if Danny Rowe does leave Sheffield Wednesday. Now, Swansea, of course, Sheehan came in as a caretaker manager and done a ridiculous job to now get himself the full-time job. So fair play to him. Unbelievable form from Swansea at the back end of the season. And play some really good football. Of course, Swansea, we know what the Swansea way is. And Sheehan started to really bring that back. And I'd be quite optimistic. If I was a Swansea fan going into next season, I'd be really thinking we can push a playoffs this season. With a bit of investment, they kind of got a much better energy about them. You look at Sheffield Wednesday we just spoke about. There's complete different energy with that Swansea team. You got Luka Modric as a part owner. They might be putting some more money into the club, some good investments. And with a bit of investment, Swansea could be right up there. When you look at the way they finished off the season, they got some real quality players. I really like Franco in the middle of the park. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Swansea, and I think they've got potential to really push for the playoffs next season. Moving on to some more mid-table clubs. We've got 3 clubs that are in a very, very interesting situation. All 3 of them are. Starting off with Watford, of course, they've appointed this new manager from Real Valladolid, I think. Obviously, I have no idea anything about him, really, but from all accounts, it looks like he's done a decent enough job until, I think, this season at Valladolid. And he seems like a bit of a character. So, you know what's going to happen with Watford. They're probably going to underperform, or underperform for the Pozzo standard. They might even get a mid-table finish, but that's not good enough for the Pozzos. So, it'll probably be gone in 12 months, this manager will, let's be real. But Watford are concerning, because Tom Cleverley and Watford, that side, absolutely punched above their weight last season. They were all in and around the playoffs, gave the Pozzos the false hope that they actually thought they were going to get it. Obviously fell away at the end, which pretty much everybody said they would fall away at the end. And then the Pozzos get rid of Cleverley. So you're going into it, then you've got a group of players that absolutely love Tom Cleverley. They've got this new manager coming in. Are they going to have the same kind of affection, or it sounds a bit zesty, that, but you know what I'm trying to say. Are they going to have them same kind of feelings towards the new managers, what they did, Tom Cleverley? Probably not. So that's just not ideal. And you'd imagine, again, Watford, it's very important how they start the season. If they start it badly, things can turn very quickly there, because already no Watford fan wanted Tom Cleverley out. I don't know who can justify that, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting with Watford going into next season. It really is. I'm very intrigued by what's going on there. Right, we'll go to Norwich City next, where, I mean, of course they got rid of Thorup, and Wilshere came in as caretaker, did very well. He's not getting the job. I don't actually know what's going on with the Norwich manager. Russell Martin's been linked. If they appoint him, it'd be a great appointment. What's going on with their players as well? There's so much up in the air with this Norwich side. You got Josh Sargent, who, in my opinion, should be going to the Premier League. What a player he is, and he can't be sat at Norwich for another season, surely, right? If he is, then fair play to Norwich for keeping hold of him. But Norwich can get a really good fee for him. I think he might have a couple of years left in his contract. Borja signs as well. He's got to be on his way. I think Borja signs looks to me that he's going to be on his way. That's your two best players that are gone. You have Doyle as well, who's obviously gone back from loan. You got some very important players that are going to be leaving Norwich by the looks of it. By the end of the transfer, I predict all three to be gone. You never know, maybe one's still there in terms of Signs or Sargent. They're going to get a lot of money for these players, so they are going to have to invest this, and they will invest well, in my opinion. They'll still be okay, in my opinion. Norwich will. I think Norwich can really go two ways. You can see them right at the bottom, or you can see them you really pushing and being in the playoffs, in my opinion. It just depends on how they invest the money, who stays, who goes, who the manager's going to be. A lot up in the air with Norwich. So it's an interesting time. It's a very interesting time to be a Norwich fan. Now with QPR, obviously this is my club. Marty Cifuentes is still on gardening leave. Like, this guy's been on gardening leave for about a month. Like, how's he still going on gardening? I don't know how he's still getting away with this. So I think Marty Cifuentes will eventually be on his way. Tom Cleverley is rumoured to be linked. I'm not sure. I think Tom Cleverley did a great job at Watford, of course, but Watford he has the affiliation with. He's been there for years. The fans obviously love him there. With QPR, it's a bit of a different. It's a completely different job at QPR to what it is at Watford. So, although Tom Cleverley's done a great job, you'd expect him to do an alright job at QPR, but it still does slightly concern me a little bit with that. Obviously, in an ideal world, I would have never wanted this situation to happen with Marty. I would have wanted him for next season. But if he's going to go speak to other clubs, then at the end of the day, he's not 100% committed to the club. So, and especially if you're going to speaking to West Brom and not even getting the job. It's just not a good look, is it, really? It's not a good look for QPR. It's not a good look for Marty. And it really is a big downer for us going into the season. And we're also probably going to be losing Jimmy Dunn as well, who was our best player. We've got some loans going back as well, which is an ideal. Koki Sato could potentially be going back to his parent club as well. So we've got loans and Ronnie Edwards as well, who was fantastic. We've got a lot of players there that we're going to have to replace. And we spent a lot of money last summer, and it didn't really work out in terms of how much we spent in terms of the seller money. It was like 3 million. 3 million as well on Madsen. These are players that haven't really proven themselves over the course of the Championship season. So we spent a lot of money. I'm a bit concerned going into next season. I think we'll be lower mid-table to relegation battle, in my opinion. Now on to the next three teams. We've got Portsmouth, Stoke and Oxford. So we'll start off with Portsmouth, who I think will be absolutely fine going into next season. John Mousinho is a very good and very safe pair of hands for Portsmouth. They are going to be losing a few players who are out on loan, who they brought in on loan. You're looking at Freddie Potts, Isaac Hayden as well was on loan. They're going to have to replace some players in the middle of the park. There's no way they're getting Freddie Potts back, let's be real. And but even still with Portsmouth, I still do think they'll be absolutely fine. They got goals in their side. Colby Bishop, since Portsmouth went back into the side, I don't know what their record is when Colby Bishop's in the side, but surely it's a lot better because obviously he wasn't there at the start of the season. Portsmouth are really struggling. They got Colby Bishop, who's a great target man and a really good player at Championship level, in my opinion. A very reliable striker now. You got Josh Murphy as well, who... I think 7 goals, 14 assists, something crazy anyway. Got a lot of goal contributions. I'm sure he'll be able to put up them kind of numbers again next season. They got goals on the side. They maybe need to sort out a little bit defensively, but they're going to address it in the transfer market, in my opinion. And I think Portsmouth will be absolutely fine. As I say, John Mousinho, I rate him very highly as a manager. We'll go on to Oxford next, who of course are another team that got promoted with Portsmouth. Oxford, a team that does slightly concern me a little bit. I don't know, Oxford fans have obviously been cooking me for this, but it's just kind of, I get Plymouth vibes. Like, I don't know if they're just... You look at the clubs that are coming up. We'll speak about them a bit more in depth in a bit with Birmingham and Wrexham. I don't really expect them to be too much I don't expect them to get relegated anyway. I'm thinking, who's going to drop in? You're going to get some decent Championship clubs get relegated this season. I think Oxford could be down there. I do think they did well, to be fair. To Gary Rowett did a great job to keep them up. He obviously took them quite far clear of relegation. They then got dragged in a little bit and then just about got out just with a couple games to go. So he did an unbelievable job to get Gary Rowett. I'm not doubting him in the slightest. I just worry about Oxford next year. I do think they'll be in another relegation battle. Will they go down? That remains to be seen. But I do just think they will be in a relegation battle, in my personal opinion. They've got some good players and they got a good team. Cameron Brannigan, of course, absolute talisman about side. And what a goal he scored, by the way, against Cardiff. That was pretty much the goal that kept Oxford up. Let's be real. And it was an unbelievable goal to secure Oxford's safety. So fair play to Cameron Brannigan, and he's a player that's absolutely Oxford through and through at this point. Now, Stoke City, they're always just down there. It doesn't matter how good Stoke's team are, how good the manager is, and how good it looks at Stoke. They'll just be lower mid-table. Like, they're just sat there all the time. They almost obviously got relegated this season, but they've got a good manager. Mark Robins, you know, is the top manager at Championship level. Did fantastic at Coventry. The job that he did there was ridiculous. At the time, everybody thought it was very harshly sacked. Obviously, Frank Lampard came in and did very well. I don't think Stoke will go down. It's just that they're just concerning about how good the team can look sometimes. You've got some very good players in that side. Berger's a really good player. Manhoof on his day's quality. You got some good players in the team, but they just never seem to click and it just never seems to work out for Stoke. So I think they'll be lower mid-table again. I don't think they'll get relegated. They're one of them I think maybe. I mean, you can't say a club's too big to go down because Birmingham went down, but I don't see Stoke getting relegated in my personal opinion. Now going on to 3 more teams, the final 3 Championship teams before we talk about the teams that got promoted from League One. We got Derby County. Of course, John Eustace came in, did a ridiculous job. They would have no doubt got relegated under Paul Warne. So John Eustace came in, absolutely turned the tide. What were they at? 7 points behind at one point. They looked absolutely down and out and pretty much nailed on for relegation. John Eustace absolutely turns things around and he got them playing. And you know, John Eustace as a manager with that underdog mentality that he has whenever he's been there with Birmingham getting them into the playoffs at the time before he got sacked. You had the Blackburn job where they were predicted to be right down at the bottom. This guy is just an absolute miracle worker. And for that reason, I do think Derby County will be absolutely fine in terms of safety this season. And I think they'll be sat comfortably in mid-table. They're already looking at players that they're already going to be bringing in. John Eustace still bringing his players, whether it's players from his previous clubs or whether it's players that John Eustace wants to bring in. They'll be absolutely fine. They'll get things right at Derby County, and I have complete confidence in Derby County doing decent enough to keep themselves up next year. I think they signed Clark on a contract as well, which is ideal because he's been very good for Derby at the back. You've got Ebu Adams as well in the middle of the park. If he stays as well, you've got a really top end Championship midfielder sat there. So I'm excited to see how Derby County get on. I think they'll be fine for safety. I don't think they'll be in anywhere near the mess they were in last season. I personally think they'll be fine. Now Preston North End, they got rid of quite a few players. They got rid of Emil Rees, who scored a lot of goals from over the years. They just got rid of Ryan Ledson, who's been there for a long time as well. They also got rid of the keeper Freddie Woodman, who is a bit iffy, I'm not going to lie. But they're going to have to replace these players. So Preston's going to be quite busy in terms of their transfer activity. I believe they've already brought in... Have they brought in a centre midfielder? I can't remember. I swear I've seen them bring in someone already. But Preston look to be moving like they're a bit more serious than usual. So I do think Preston they should be fine under Paul Heckingbottom. He's a safe pair of hands. Obviously, I'm saying that as he almost got them relegated last season. But they absolutely sleptwalked into a relegation battle because they were pretty much mid-table all season, to be honest. So I do think Preston will probably be lower mid-table. They always seem to end up there. But I would be slightly nervous looking over my shoulder at Preston, but they should be fine. They're also losing, obviously, Kesler Hayden as well, who was probably their best player at right back. Not ideal that he's gone. Obviously, he was on loan. So not ideal that losing a player like that. They're going to have to replace, but they should be fine. They normally are fine. They're literally the most mid-table club you can get, aren't they, Preston? Now, Hull City, Jesus Christ, where do you even start with Hull City? I can't believe they've even got rid of Ruben Sellers. If I'm a Championship club, like if I'm QPR, obviously being a QPR fan, I'd say just go for Ruben Sellers, personally. I think in terms of the job that he did at Reading, people might not be as aware of what he did at Reading, but you look at the situation that Reading were in, he had them in the playoffs. And he took a massive gamble, by the way, in going to Hull. I think there was that rock bottom when they appointed him, or they might have been 23rd. Hull City owe him a lot. Like the ownership owe him a lot in terms of what he did. He took a gamble on coming to them, goes ahead then and keeps them up. Which yes, they stumbled to safety, but he still did a fantastic job to keep them up. You look at the table when he took over, Hull sat comfortably in mid-table. I think it might even be top half. Why are they sacking him? Like straight up, why are they sacking him? It's a ridiculous decision, and honestly, Hull have to start Hull literally have to start next season well. Otherwise, them fans will turn in the ownership so quickly. So it's going to be interesting with Hull, and they're losing. I think they lost Gelhardt as well. I think he was obviously on loan from Leeds. Don't know if they'll get him back or not. He did very well when he came in. I'd imagine Hull will put some money into it because the ownership always seems to try and sign players. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on next season. I do think they'll be down there, to be honest, just because just sacking Ruben Sellers is just absolutely ridiculous. You're not really going to get anybody any better, in my personal opinion. Now, going on to the newly promoted teams, of course, we don't know who's actually going to win that playoff final between Leyton Orient and Charlton, but we'll discuss them both in detail as we get to them. But we'll start off with Birmingham City, of course. 111 points, record breakers, far too good for League One, and well good enough for the Championship. So Birmingham this season in the Championship, I'm absolutely expecting them to be completely fine from relegation. You've already got a team, as I say, that's good enough for Championship level, as proven by 111 points. They're going to spend more money. They're going to sign some more players. And they don't need to do a massive amount in terms of the transfer market because their team's already very good. Clara at the back's been very good. Jay Stansfield, I mean, he's got a lot of goals in League One, but I'm expecting him to do better. I'm not better in the Championship in terms of goal tally, but I think he'll find it easier in the Championship because the teams that play against Birmingham in League One are literally just part of the bus. Like, straight up part of the bus. They're not interested in going forward. Birmingham are basically just trying to break down a team. This in the Championship, it's not going to be like that as much. You know, you're going away, Birmingham with some big teams, as we discussed earlier on the video. All them teams, they're not going to be playing at home to Birmingham and parking the bus like other teams are. So it's going to be a completely different style of play for Birmingham and the way that they're going to be setting up in games. They're obviously not going to be as dominant as what they were in League One. So for a player like Jay Stansfield on the counter attack, I think he'll be a lot better. We saw him in the Championship before for Birmingham, did very well, so I think he'll be really good at Championship level. And overall, they've got a very good squad, which I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on in the Championship. And I think personally, they will be able to push playoffs, in my opinion. I think they'll be right up there. And I think with the whole mentality and the atmosphere around Birmingham right now, I really do think they're going to do well this season. And the fans, the fans are so behind everything now. Last time in the Championship, I genuinely think the relegation for them was the best thing to happen to Birmingham. I really do think that. But in the long run, this is going to benefit Birmingham massively. And you got to say fair play to Wayne Rooney for taking on that job and pretty much relegating Birmingham. Because in the long run, it's for the greater good, right? Right, and Wrexham are on to next, which, what is going on? 50 grand a week they're talking about for Tom Cairney, who actually scored for Fulham, by the way, today. If they pull off that transfer, like, I know Tom Cairney's 34, but genuinely, it's just a ridiculous sign. And it'd be right up there in terms of Championship wages, and it's a newly promoted club from League One. That's how serious Wrexham are moving, and they're not going to be messing about. Even if they don't sign Tom Cairney, the fact that they're linked with moves like that just show that these guys are serious next season. And that already just puts it into perspective for me that I just don't think they'll be getting relegated. I don't think they'll get relegated. If they're moving like that, they're going to be staying up. We'll see who they actually eventually sign, but they're not messing about. They even got rid of Stephen Fletcher on a free. I thought, if they're being sentimental and that, they'd probably give him another year and think, yeah, we'll have you as our backup, because Stephen Fletcher said it's out of my hands. Wrexham didn't want to sign him, so that's how serious these guys are moving. I think if they weren't moving serious, they think, oh, we'll try and stay up, we'll be in a relegation battle. They'd probably sign a player like Stephen Fletcher up for another year and think, yeah, this guy will be good for the bench. Now, these guys aren't messing about. I think they'll be right. I'm not going to say they'll be right up there, but I don't even think they'll be in a relegation battle anymore. But we'll see who they actually sign. Right now, of course, that squad gets relegated from the Championship, in my opinion. But we'll see who they sign. So, a lot up in the air with Wrexham. Now, it depends who wins, of course, the Leyton Orient versus Charlton game in the playoff final. If Leyton Orient win, I'll say it now, I think they're cooked. I think they're finished. They got Charlie Kelman on loan. They got Donnelly on loan from Spurs. They've also got the keeper. Oh, what's his name? I can't remember what his name is, but they got the keeper on loan. Something beginning with K, I think. Can't remember. They got him on loan. And they've also got the fullback as well, who's on loan from Oxford as well. They've got 4 players, which were key players in terms of Leyton Orient's promotion, who are all, as Keeley, by the way, the keeper, has just come to my head. But they got 4 players that were key parts in Leyton Orient. If they do get promoted, then all on their way. And I don't think they'll be able to sign them back. Kelman won't be going back. Left back will be staying at Oxford. Maybe the keeper, maybe Donnelly. We'll see. If they get promoted, of course. But they're going to need so much investment. But Richie Wellens done a fantastic job there. And they'll be an underdog. It'll be like a Wickham coming up. It's going to be a team you don't expect to be in the Championship that are going to give absolutely everything if they get to the Championship to try and stay up. Will they have the quality? Probably not. But they're going to give it a good go. But for me, I think they're down. I think if they come up, they're down. That's my personal opinion. And to be honest, Charlton, I'd have a bit more hopes for Charlton. But I do think they need big investment if Charlton do get promoted. Obviously, these League One teams I haven't watched as much of. I watch the Championship week in, week out. The League One teams I just watch bits and bobs. But Charlton, they've been pretty solid over the course of the season. They look like a good team. Obviously, that game that they played against Wickham was absolutely diabolical on the eyes to watch. I mean, Wickham just didn't even play. Wickham didn't try and play. Let's be real. So, we'll see. I think Charlton are the team that will be best equipped out of them and Leyton Orient to get promoted. And I still do think they'll just come straight back down, in my personal opinion. But we've seen every single club in the last 2 years that's come up from League One has actually stayed up in the Championship. So, could they make it a hat-trick? Potentially. I think the first 2 teams in Wrexham and Birmingham there, I'd be very confident in staying up in the Championship. Them other 2 teams in the playoff final, I'm not as confident in the slightest. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know how you feel going into the season with your personal team. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Please subscribe to the channel as well. If you wouldn't mind, it takes 1 second. If you watch this point, please do hit subscribe. It'd be very greatly appreciated. As I say, we're trying to get to 1,000. So if you can help me out, that'd be very greatly appreciated. Anyway, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.